But first, here is Kelly Jean Kelly.
Some universities in the United States are canceling their study programs in China and banning travel to the country because of the coronavirus outbreak. The travel restrictions also make it hard to plan for conferences and other university events that researchers from China might attend. That door has been closed for the immediate future, said Michael Schoenfeld. He is Vice President for Public Affairs and Government Relations at Duke University in the state of North Carolina. U.S. government officials recently recommended that Americans avoid trips to China. Shortly after, many universities announced limits on travel to the country. This includes Duke University. The school has a partnership with Wuhan University, which is at the center of the outbreak. The Duke Kunshan University has shut down until February 24th. 2 of the 12 confirmed coronavirus cases in the United States are linked to college campuses. One case was confirmed at Arizona State University. The second was at the University of Massachusetts at Boston. That university says the infected student had recently traveled to Wuhan. The viral outbreak may harm academic ties between the U.S. and China, said Brad Farnsworth. He is a vice president at the American Council on Education. He noted that the 2002 to 2003 SARS outbreak did not really lead to such problems. The whole higher education relationship was not nearly as complex as it is now, Farnsworth said. We have many, many more students going in both directions. The longer the crisis lasts, the deeper the damage will be, he added. China sent more than 369,000 students to the United States during the 2018-2019 school year, more than any other country. The U.S. usually sends more than 11,000 students to China each year. The higher education relationship between the two countries was already being affected by ongoing trade tensions, visa difficulties, and U.S. concerns about security risks of visiting Chinese students. I'm Kelly Jean Kelly.
Hollywood's award season may not show it, but the most popular movies in the United States are increasingly diverse. That is the finding of a report released this week. It comes from the Annenberg Inclusion Initiative at the University of Southern California. The report found that more of 2019's top movies had women or members of racial minorities as lead characters than ever before. Researchers with the university examined the 100 most popular films in North American theaters. They found that 31 movies had leads or co-leads from an underrepresented racial group. That represents an increase of 4 films from 2018 and is nearly 3 times higher than the number 10 years ago. The researchers found similar gains for female lead actors. Of the same 100 films, 43 had female leads or co-leads, an increase of 4 films from 2018 and more than double the amount of female leads in 2007. Other studies released last month showed an increase in the numbers of female directors. The combined research shows that after years of little diversity in front of and behind the camera, the American film industry is making real progress. It still does not completely represent the U.S. population, of which 51% is female and about 40% are people of color. But the California researchers called it a banner year for inclusion. It is clear that Hollywood is taking steps to create more inclusive stories and that those films are connecting with audiences, Stacey L. Smith said in a statement. She established the Inclusion Initiative. But there has been little evidence of those gains yet in Hollywood's awards season, which comes to a close on Sunday with the Academy Awards show. For the 87th time, no female filmmakers received nominations for Best Director. And while the much-nominated Korean film Parasite has made history, only one person of color was nominated for an acting award. That actor is Cynthia Erivo for her part in the movie Harriet. At the British Academy of Film and Television Awards last weekend, only white actors were nominated. The University of Southern California researchers also looked at the major companies which provide films to theaters. Popularity in theaters was an important measure in the study, so they did not include releases from streaming services, including Netflix and Amazon, neither of which provided sales numbers for most of their 2019 releases. Universal led all production studios in the study. It had 9 films with a female lead and 8 films with leads from an underrepresented ethnicity. Universal is the only production company led by a woman, Donna Langley. I'm Pete Musto.
The Fast and the Furious films, a series of car racing movies, often describe a product called NOS, short for nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is a fuel that racers use to give more power to their cars. Racers push the NOS button on the controls, and their cars suddenly go much faster. Today on Everyday Grammar, we will explore the world of intensifiers, words that increase the power of other words. You might say intensifiers are like the nitrous oxide of the English language. And just like NOS can be useful in a race, understanding intensifiers can help you when you are reading or listening to something in English. Let us begin with a few definitions.
Intensifiers are words that make adjectives and adverbs stronger. Let me give you an example. Imagine a person uses the adjective cool to describe a car, as in,
That car is cool.
that same person might strengthen or enforce the meaning of cool by using an intensifier, as in,
That car is so cool.
common English intensifiers are words such as very, really, and so. Very is probably the most formal, while the word so is probably the least formal. The least formal intensifier, so, will be our subject of discussion today.
The word so has an unusual history. The online etymology dictionary notes that so comes from the Old English term swa. The Google Ngrams search engine shows so appearing as far back as the year 1500, the first year in Google's book records. So has had many meanings over time. We cannot explore all of these today. But as an intensifier, so appears to have been used in the early 1900s, and perhaps even earlier. Then it fell out of everyday usage. A little over 25 or 30 years ago, so, as an intensifier, started to make a comeback. Language experts in England, Canada, and the United States noted and studied its rise in popularity.
Sally Tagliamonte and Chris Roberts looked at the rise of so by using transcripts of the American television show Friends. They found that the usage of so in Friends was similar to other studies of how English speakers used the term. In other words, the language in the TV show was close to the language of real life. What Tagliamonte and Roberts found was that so was fast becoming one of the most common intensifiers in everyday speech throughout North America. It was replacing the word really as the top intensifier. In a separate study, Tagliamonte found that so was by far the most common intensifier in new kinds of written communication, often in text messages. One possible explanation is that so is much faster to type on a computer or other electronic device. It also takes up less space in a message where space is so important.
You might be wondering why intensifiers are important. Intensifiers are important because they often provide useful information about other words. As we said earlier, intensifiers go with adjectives and adverbs. If you see a sentence with difficult words, you can use your knowledge of intensifiers to predict the meaning of unknown words. Here are two examples. Can you provide the missing words?
That engine is so blank. The car race was so blank to watch.
In both sentences, one word is missing. But you know that because both statements have intensifiers, the missing words are probably adjectives or adverbs. And since both statements appear to offer a description, you can probably predict that the missing words are adjectives. The context of the sentences before and after the statements can tell you if the adjective is either positive or negative in meaning. Imagine one of our example statements went on, as in,
The car race was so blank to watch. I loved it.
You can tell from the sentence, I loved it, that the missing adjective is probably positive in meaning. Perhaps the adjective means fun?
The next time you are reading books written in English or listening to English speakers, try to find examples of intensifiers. Keep a record of them and try to use them in your own writing and speaking. But try not to use them too much. Like Nos in the Fast and the Furious movies, intensifiers are best used at certain times and for certain reasons. And that's Everyday Grammar. I'm Jill Robbins.
And I'm John Russell.